All right, welcome to another mediocre production from Samantha Peacock. This is my video presentation on aging. My definition of old, so ironically, because my video was late, it kind of gave me a little more insight and more perspective on my definition of aging that I didn't even think about. It just brought up some thoughts that I used to think of when I was younger, that we start off as a child who is completely dependent on someone, and then we grow into adulthood, and then that's kind of where over the hill started. Once you hit that over the hill mark, then you start your decline to kind of mirror that first half of your life. And as an elder senior, it was always kind of thought of that you would return to that very dependent state that you started. And I do, since I've been in the medical field, I have noticed a shift in that. I do still have a lot of patients that's kind of what they willingly take on. A lot of them say, this kind of goes into the difference in generations too. They'll say it's just part of getting older, their pain is. Whereas other people will say, you've got some people that are kind of, you're more often seeing staying fit and understanding that that's not the way it has to be anymore. They don't have to decline. They don't have to be in pain. They don't have to rely on other people so much. And so my personal definition of old would be aging with some sign of physical or cognitive decline. Even if it's minimal, just you're not that same person that you were 15 years ago. Disabled, my definition that I would interpret would be requiring some type of assistance or modification to complete daily tasks. I think of a lot of veterans, and I think of a lot of children who they have setbacks, and I would probably technically call them disabled, though there are so many modifications and tools these days that they really find themselves in the same position as anybody else. So that's pretty cool. A difference in opinion generationally, as I said, I've got some people who tell me that the pain and the aches and all that, it's just a part of getting older, and they just accept it. And a lot of them won't even give me a pain rating because they say it's just that's always their pain. It's just a part of it. Another one that I hear often is that getting old isn't for the weak, because it is so hard and difficult and painful sometimes. A cultural difference that it kind of made my social media feed a couple years ago, but it was the first thing that came to mind, is the Hoogway Village. It's the dementia village in Amsterdam. It's 152 residents. It is just a little village that these people with dementia can live in, and they've got their little tiny houses, and they kind of just live their life in this little village. There's a grocery store, a restaurant, a hair salon, a movie theater, and the healthcare staff work there in these facilities, in the grocery store, the restaurant, the hair salon, and the theater, while allowing these people to kind of live as normal of a life as they can, and still just enjoy their life. And I would call that a cultural difference, because I have never seen, and I can't imagine seeing anything like that in the United States. Another cultural difference that it's not so much with aging, but kind of how we take care of our aging population. The Filipino population, when I lived in Las Vegas, it's just kind of known when your parents get older, they live with you. There's no questions. It's not really spoken. That's their culture. And I don't think you see that in the more, I can only speak for the Caucasian population in America, but it's not really that way. You see a lot of people sending their parents off to different facilities to be taken care of. It's kind of sad. So it was a general question that if somebody needed care in my family, who would be the caretaker? I think it would really depend. If it were my immediate family, I would definitely say my mother. She is just for our family dynamic. I've got a stepdad and we don't really get along. So if it were him who would need care, or me that would need care, she's kind of that middle ground. Because I wouldn't expect him to take care of me, and I'm not sure he would really expect me to take care of him, though we both would if it came down to that. But my mother, she's just really the center of our family, and that's my mom, my mommy when I was a kid, so she was, my caretaker always as growing up. My extended family, I would, if anything happened outside of my immediate family, I would say my cousin Jessica. She may not be able to stay to help being a caretaker, but she is always the first one to show up when something happens and someone needs something. And I think that aside from just her heart and who she is, she's probably the most financial stable person in our family right now. And her schedule kind of allows her to take off in emergency situations. And she's also geographically closest to everyone that's kind of spread out. Why is it important to take care of someone in your family? It kind of seems obvious to me, but to give back, it's your family. That's what family's for. You're supposed to show up for each other in those really hard times. That's what love is. It's not just the good times. It's when somebody needs you and being there. And on a deeper level, because I'm a religious person, I believe in serving people. And that's an opportunity to serve someone that you love and care about. So my definition of family, my immediate family would be my mom, my stepdad, and my brother. And that's outside of my new family that's growing. I've got a husband, a son, and one on the way. My extended family, though, they're in my head, they're always just my family. We grew up in a really small town. Me and my cousins are all really close. We were closer when we were younger, but that's still my family. And if any of them did ultimately need me, or my mom or my uncle, they would, we would show up for each other. And for my mom, she does have a good group of her college friends that I've grown up calling aunt. There's my 3 aunts. They were all college buddies and roommates, and we've all kind of stuck together over the years, though we don't see each other as often anymore. but I know at the drop of a hat they would be there, and my mom for them as well. So I chose to be a little bit more specific with the aging topic versus disability. And the first thing I think of is my grandparents. They were kind of they helped raise me, and my grandma was my best friend, and my grandpa was my father figure growing up. And I just kind of watched them age. And in my head, they were never going to get older. They were never going anywhere. They were just always my grandma and grandpa, and they never changed what they did. They never had to kind of cut back on activities. They both passed away in 2013 after 60 years of marriage, and we have always been, it was a very heartbreaking time for our family, but we've always been very grateful that they didn't have to end up in a hospital or a facility. And, they were able to go 5 days apart from each other. So, pretty sweet story. My parents, on the other hand, I'm noticing the aging effects a little bit more. My mom has to change her activities, and my stepdad as well. They're just not able to do the same stuff that they were. And they're needing more medical care and more surgeries. I would say I've noticed it in myself as well, from my early 20s to now. And I thought I had everything set, and now my battery's about to die. I know the biggest thing for me, because I used to be able to run on 3 hours of sleep, and now I definitely need a good solid amount of sleep if I can even function. I don't know how I did it, actually. I remember being in college and going to school and going to the gym, going to work, and now it's a struggle to keep all of that up, just physically. All right, now the fun stuff, sharing statistics. I have a little bit more than 3, because it kind of led me down a rabbit hole of statistics. So when I think about getting older, I did home health for a while, and I would go into assisted living facilities. So they're just like apartment communities where seniors can live. They provide meals there. They'll clean your apartment for you. They'll do your laundry if you need it, but you've got your own washer and dryer. They've got a little gym, there's all kinds of little social activities there. That's what I think of. You kind of downsized your home physically, but you're still maintaining that social aspect and all of your basic needs. So the cost of living in an assisted living, this is just an average, for 2019, the cost of living in a single occupant apartment is $3,628 a month. It goes up into the $5,000-$6,000 if you live with your spouse and have a double occupancy. The maximum Social Security benefit that someone would receive, and this was 2018, this was if you worked and made the maximum taxable amount, which is $128,000, you would receive $2,078 per month in Social Security. So that's leaving about a $1,000 gap there. On the other end, if you can't afford that and you need more assistance, you got nursing homes. you definitely lose your independence in a nursing home. People might need a little bit more care. Cognitively, physically, they might be a little bit more advanced. So the Family Caregiver Alliance has their most recent numbers from 1999 stating that 1.5 million people were in nursing homes. So those would be people that do need more care, and their family, they either don't have family or their family just didn't really step up for them. So if you can't go either of those routes, or you don't need to go those routes, we have 1.3 million elderly people, older adults, living alone. So people who've never been married or people who've lost their spouse. It doesn't really mention their family dynamics otherwise, but those people are living alone. That's 1/3 of the older adult population. So here are some interesting but scary facts about living alone. Senior isolation, increased risks of mortality. Both social isolation and loneliness are associated with higher risk of mortality in adults 52 and older. Feelings of loneliness can negatively affect both physical and mental health. Regardless of the physical facts, whether they are alone or not, if they feel alone or isolated, this leads to poor physical and mental health. Perceived loneliness contributes to cognitive decline and risk of dementia. So that kind of pulls in that disability factor as well, because dementia is that's a complete disease. I mean, it's taking physically, cognitively, it kind of just takes everything from you. But it falls into that aging aspect as well. Social isolation makes seniors more vulnerable to elder abuse. And there's so many types of elder abuse that can be financially, physically, psychologically. We had our company sends out a monthly newsletter in just kind of giving props to people who've had exceptional customer service. And one lady in Tennessee, she was just a front desk girl. She picked up on some signs from a patient. We're just an outpatient company for physical therapy. She picked up on some signs and followed up on her own time. She went above and beyond to follow up with this. And the woman's family members, I don't remember if it was niece or a nephew and his wife or a grandson, but they were taking advantage of this woman. They had somehow had a doctor sign off that this patient had dementia and psychological issues. They had named themselves power of attorney. They had taken her money, signed over her Social Security checks. It had gone pretty far. And I believe there was physical abuse as well, because the woman did end up in the hospital. And that was ultimately where our staff member stepped in, was when she was at the hospital to help this woman out. And she actually did not have dementia or any psychological issues. They'd made her feel crazy for so long. Okay. Fun fact number 5, LGBT seniors are more likely to be socially isolated. I don't believe that will be forever. I think that's just a sign of the times at this point, but it does make sense to me. Social isolation in seniors is linked to long-term illness. This includes chronic lung disease, arthritis, impaired mobility, and depression. Loneliness in seniors is a major risk factor for depression. I didn't include it because I already have so much, but I do remember seeing a video somewhere of these high school, I think it was high school seniors doing a volunteer project, and they reached out to senior citizens to play a game of chess, read to them, just kind of hang out. And it was the only interaction these people had had, and the story before these boys came in just kind of broke my heart. A lot of people just have no interaction. Loneliness causes high blood pressure. Socially isolated seniors are more pessimistic about the future. That kind of makes sense. You don't have a lot to look forward to when you don't have much positivity in your life. Physical and geographic isolation also leads to social isolation. I'm sure that's true if you live in a more rural area. Isolated seniors are more likely to need long-term care. That also makes sense, branching off from all these other health issues that are associated. Loss of a spouse is a major risk factor for loneliness and isolation. If you've been with somebody for half or a quarter of your life and they're suddenly gone, your day-to-day feels off. People don't know. They just can't grasp how to go about their day without the loss of their partner. Transportation challenges can lead to isolation. Absolutely. People, whether they're just no longer safe to drive anymore, financially they just can't have a car. There's a number of reasons that I've witnessed that keep people in their homes. They can't get out. Luckily, there are more programs lately, but even those I've noticed are difficult to use. You've got to already be on a list, and you've got to ask days in advance. And so it is possible, but they don't make it 100% easy and accessible. Caregivers of the elderly are also at risk for social isolation. It can just feel like you're kind of stuck in your own little world, your own little twilight zone. Loneliness can be contagious. Lonely people are more likely to engage in unhealthy behavior. This being poor diet, lack of physical activity, and smoking. Volunteering can reduce social isolation and loneliness in seniors. As I mentioned earlier, I believe in service, and I think giving back just makes you feel better. And it also, you've got that social connection with others at the same time. Technology can help, but that's still, you've got the generational barrier sometimes if they don't understand how to use everything. And then a couple other facts to just recommend taking a class or boosting your physical activity to reduce stress and senior isolation. So one last thing to end on for the fun facts, because there's actually been a term dubbed for this. It's called an elder orphan. The people who are at the most risk of becoming an elder orphan are older adults who are isolated, older adults estranged from siblings and family, single older adults with no children, single older adults with estranged children, childless couples, married couples with estranged children, single older adults with no or limited social circles and support group, and older women without support. The effects of this: being lonely, socially isolated, being abused, and lack of legal support, which is a whole other topic as well, the legal factor. So how could we improve as a society to meet social and healthcare needs? I feel like as a whole, our society is just out of sight, out of mind. With all social issues, all major news stories. You see it when there's massive hurricanes and destruction. A week goes by and out of sight, out of mind. And I think that also is applied to our family members, unfortunately. It's terrible to say that, but, a lot of people will throw their family members in a facility and just think that that's taken care of, but that's not the case. So I think we need to improve with, it has to be a mindset, first of all, to make that step and to make that effort to decrease the social isolation for, doesn't even have to be a family member, but if they're your family, then definitely keep them in mind all the time and check on them. If you can have them at home, do so. But I think also just teaching the younger generations, taking the younger generations around, the grandchildren, the great-great-grandchildren, that helps, I think, both ends of the spectrum there. Making sure that people have social activities, whether you provide that or provide transportation to that, allow people, and I'm talking a little more on the smaller spectrum, just of what you or I could do. But taking that step to make sure that people aren't alone, making sure they have meals, that their daily tasks around the house are taken care of, and make sure that they're taking care of their mind. My grandma always loved Sudoku puzzles and crossword puzzles. She swore that was how she fought off a cognitive decline. She was minorly forgetful at the end, but she was really sharp all the way up till the end. Now, as more of a society, I love what they did in Amsterdam, having those little communities, and that's more specific to dementia. But I think it's just, I don't even know if my brain can think that big how to change the living situation that we have, the problem with the cost of independent care. These facilities where people can be independent, they cost so much, and that is just more of a political agenda, I guess, that I just can't wrap my head around for the actual way to solve it. But I know that there is a problem. I'm witnessing that, and I would hope that someday somebody will be in office that wants to use that as their soapbox. So, thank you. That was a lot longer than I anticipated, and I hope I don't get docked for that. So, have a good night. Bye.